Wow, this is a nice, it's a nice turnout that I see if I can turn around here. Thanks so much to Betty and to Myron, who started organizing this about 6 months ago, I think, when they contacted me. And thanks to the Asian American Bar Association and to the Asian American Suicide Prevention Initiative, too, for their incredibly brave work on a lot of controversial issues. This book actually came out of, or I'm going to give you some history of why I wrote the book and the format that it takes. It's based on a eulogy that I wrote about Iris that appeared in the web magazine Salon.com, and this is shortly after her suicide in November of '04, and immediately after this was published, I was just barraged by emails from people who so strongly identified with her and saw her as a symbol of so many things. First, before I go on, I should ask, is everyone familiar with what Iris did as a historian? But just to sum it up, she was. I'm gonna talk in a lot more detail about her career, but they had such a profound effect to so many Asian Americans, families, and relatives. And like I said, I did this eulogy for Salon about Iris, and she was so symbolic to people as an Asian American questioning authority, as someone arguing for civil rights, as a working mother, as someone with depression, as a suicide, and the list just went on. And all these people talked about how they were crushed and devastated and even shattered when they got the news in November of '04 about the death of this woman that they never even met, that she just meant so much to them. And I should also add the rape of Nanking. It's about this terrible massacre in Nanking, which then was the capital of nationalist China in 1937. This is actually the 70th anniversary of it, just last month. And in that massacre, there was just incredible brutality in the bloodshed and rapes and horrible torture of the citizens of Nanking. And that was symbolic, not only because Nanking was the capital of nationalist China, but it was also symbolic of atrocities committed in China and then throughout Asia. And Iris's book just tapped into and sparked activism in the U.S. and almost or about every Asian country to raise awareness about the atrocities and get Japan to finally apologize and to revise its textbooks or its history books to reflect what had really happened. And another reason to write this book is like these readers of the Salon article, I had a lot of questions about Iris's death. It was one of the most shocking and inexplicable things that had ever happened. It was so inexplicable that a lot of people even thought that she was murdered because she had it all. That every time I'd introduce her to one of my friends, their self-esteem would immediately plummet and go down to zero, because she seemed to be the most successful person anyone had ever met, that she had everything. She was beautiful, she was brilliant, she had fame and fortune, she had a nice husband, kid, a close family, a lot of friends. She even had this element of glamour in her life, that she was invited a few times to the White House in the Clinton years, to their famous Renaissance weekends, and at these weekends they'd invite filmmakers, best-selling authors, movie stars, and it's just a common thing that Iris would tell me about on the phone, about how her New Year's went, that she was at Hilton Head Island with Hillary and Amy Tan and Oliver Stone and all these people. So and also I'd never known her to be depressed. I known her since college. I'm going to read a little bit about how I met her. And I mean, if anything, she was very, very upbeat. If there was ever a problem that I would have, she'd always have just a bullet list of suggestions about how to conquer any problem. You know, there was always a way through hard work and planning ahead, you know, to conquer any problem. The more time that went on, as the months went on, I found out that Iris had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder just in the last few weeks of her life. She had only seen a psychiatrist at the very end of her life, in the last 3 weeks, and he had made that diagnosis. And I realized just how little that I knew about bipolar disorder and mental illness, and I felt so sorry, of course, that I had missed the signs along with so many of her friends. And I did a little more research about Asian Americans and mental illness, and I found out, actually, I interviewed someone in this audience who was in the back row, Aruna Jha, who was a scholar at UIC about these issues, and she told me that culturally, with Asian Americans, a lot of times, like in the manic phase, the behavior will be less manic. It'll be more restrained. So I was associated that manic part of bipolar disorder with promiscuity and wild shopping, basically. And Iris didn't do any of that. But then Dr. Jha explained to me that even in the most extreme state, an Asian American would be much less likely, to do those very reckless things. So it's very interesting to learn about how culture can affect the way mental illness is manifested, and I wanted to share this information and try to prevent this from happening to others. And I also had a motivation in this book to look at dark issues that we cover as journalists and talk about how we can take steps to prevent them from having, like you said in your introduction, and having toxic effects on our lives. At the end of her life, Iris was deep in research on a book about the Bataan Death March. And just by the name of that incident from World War II, the Bataan Death March, you know that it wasn't happy stuff. So she was immersed in interviews with American GIs who had been captured by the Japanese in the Philippines in World War II and been brutally tortured and starved. And this is what she was living, just immersed in every day. So it wasn't just the mental illness, but it was also exacerbated by all these other factors, by career pressures, by the really depressing nature of the work that she was doing. And I wanted to get a dialogue going about how we journalists can continue to cover these dark issues. It's really important that we do that. And I saw some activists taking a message from Iris's death that it's too dangerous to cover these tough topics. But actually, it is very possible to do that as long as we just take some time to think about it and protect ourselves and take some precautions. That Iris basically threw herself into it without seeing any kind of therapist or talking about it with anybody, or even recognizing the potential harm, to her psyche, to her psyche of all this. And finally, I just want to point out the format of this book. That it's part memoir about our friendship, and that the view of Iris is mainly through my eyes, but that it's also supported by a lot of interviews that I did with her colleagues, friends, and her husband ended up being a major source of information, especially about the last months of her life. And I also took a cue from Iris and went to different archives to do research. That was actually her greatest love of all, to a university.